The real challenge for business today is to respond to the change which is happening within the marketplace. And that change is really dramatic for three reasons. One is that markets are incredibly complicated today. So instead of thinking about just working in a certain sector, now all of those sector boundaries have disappeared and your marketplace is ultimately infinite in terms of where you can compete and in terms of the customers who see and can potentially respond to you. What it also means is that because there's no boundaries today, competitors can enter your market very quickly and can respond to changes at unbelievable speed. And the third thing is that power has really shifted as well. So power has shifted from suppliers to customers. So instead of a marketplace of surplus demand, we now work in marketplaces which are full of surplus supply. And all of those things create tremendous challenges for business, and particularly for the marketers inside the organisations who need to be the driving force in terms of responding to that change. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at these challenges for marketers, and we're going to look at three particular things. One is brands and how marketing needs to think differently perhaps about brands. The second one is customers and looking at the challenges in terms of building relationships and loyalty of customers, but perhaps in different ways. And thirdly, the challenge of innovation, which in some cases has been outside the realm of typical marketing, but today is very much a challenge for every single marketer. Brands are faced with some big choices today. Who are they for? And by consequence, who are they not for? What are they about? And what are they not about? And why is it that I should choose them, trust them, and buy all sorts of different things from them, as opposed to all the different alternatives on offer?
Brand is probably one of the least well understood words in the English dictionary. The best definition of a brand I've ever heard is a series of promises which do not change over time. How we express these promises changes dramatically as time goes by, because the sort of technology-scape, the lifescape behind it, our progress through life changes that, refracts that a lot. But the promises remain the same.
Brands aren't so likely to be built on USPs anymore, because there's very few sort of unique selling points around. Innovations are caught up with very quickly, and brands aren't so much built upon image and aspiration anymore, because I think people have seen it all before and your audience tends to see through it if it's superficial. But brands have got to play have got to behave in a different way now. They've got to, in the past I think quite often a brand was just almost like a screen between the audience and the company. It hid the real nasty company away from people and presented it as something aspirational. Now the brand has got to be like a magnifying glass between the company and the people.
That's what brands do. They become little beacons that enable me to make a decision quickly without too much effort, because I've got loads of other things that I want to get done.
But you are trying to look for what the brand or the company actually does in people's lives. So marketing communications is about really understanding where the needs lie and where you can go out and do something to meet those needs. Nike, they've got all sorts of problems in the way they manufacture their shoes, but the marketing is amazing. They do things like they'll look at a city and work out what value they can add to that city. So they go into London and they go, well, you know, people want to run more here. How can we give them the tools to do that? And they create the Run London thing.
Most people who buy Nike shoes couldn't run for a bus. But it's a massively successful brand because they've sold a lifestyle, they've sold a vision. The attitude of just do it captures an attitude for life.
It can be, you know, it can look quite upsetting from a brand manager's point of view. You're going to go out and insult some members of your audience, but really, you know, the audience is pretty intelligent. They understand that brand is taking a point of view. We were just saying Reebok was quite an interesting example. Their advertising insults people who have bellies. It's saying get away from, you know, belly's coming to get you. Now on one level, you know, that everyone understands it, but you can kind of imagine a brand manager saying, oh, you've got to remember half our audience are probably a bit overweight and we want them to use Reebok as well. We don't want to insult them, so we don't want songs about bellies. But you know, they've gone out, they've said, belly's going to get you, here's a big belly, it's horrible, get away from it. And somehow, you've got to be able to make those kind of attacks on your audience.
It wasn't enough to create awareness of IKEA or change attitudes towards IKEA. If we were to change behaviour, we had to change taste. So changing taste is quite a profound and big thing to do. So what we set about doing was undermining people's confidence in their own taste. So we said to women, if you like the same sort of things as your mother likes, then you're almost letting the whole feminist movement down. And a lesson from that, I think, is if you genuinely want to build a brand that will encourage people to change their behaviour, you need to be willing to challenge people's behaviour, and you need to be willing to take the controversy that comes along with that. And there will be controversy.
Customers are still pretty dissatisfied, partly because they haven't got enough time to enjoy all the things which they've got, partly because they're constantly looking for a bit more in terms of excitement or buzz. So what can we do to satisfy those needs? Well, one of the things which marketers are doing is they're thinking about experiences, thinking about how can they add entertainment to their product or service, how can they add education to their product or service. Another thing is that they're thinking about how can we do more than just build a relationship or try to build a relationship with the customer. How can we actually bring customers together so that they can make more of being with each other rather than just what they get from us.
We sometimes talk about the 5 resources that we think are now in play. We refer to them as items, which stands for information, time, energy, money and space. So as far as we can see, there are 5 finite resources that consumers now play with. Now clearly money is becoming less finite for most of us. Bit of a blip at the moment in terms of where the economy is going, but broadly the trend is we get better off. The things that we're starting to struggle with are not having enough time to do all the things that we think we ought to be doing. Energy is something that none of us have got enough of. There's more opportunities to use energy than we have energy available. Space is becoming a real issue in an urbanising world, in that there just isn't enough room. There's too many people around, there's not enough room in my house, my wardrobe is bursting with all these clothes I can afford that I don't wear, and so on and so forth. And information is the 4th currency, and information is a very interesting resource because it's something that on the one hand we know we've got too much of, but on the other hand we kind of want more. We don't think we know everything. So thinking about the transaction with consumers on those 5 dimensions rather than just it's an exchange of money, I think will help to get closer to what matters to consumers in tomorrow's world.
Consumers do not want relationships with companies in general, and I think that's an incredibly important starting point. The buzzwords here to kind of try and infuse into all the marketing is to try and be personally relevant to that particular customer or that particular group. So that means developing a very sophisticated segmentation approach whereby BT really understands the shifting communications needs of different groups of consumers, and then also understands how consumers approach fulfilling those needs. So which providers are they working with? What sorts of services and propositions are they looking for? How important is price within that mix, and so on. And if BT develops a compelling understanding of the key segments within the market and how they're shifting, then from that it needs to develop tailored communications and marketing strategies that speak in a relevant way to those groups. And I think that will be the route to successfully